Good morning. This is Andrea Masucci. I'm the Director of Retirement Plan Services for Hamilton Capital in Columbus, Ohio. I'm also Chair on the Board of Women in Pensions Network Connections That Count for the Mentoring Committee. And I'm very excited today to bring to you the Fearless You, A Year of Courageous Conversations, Part 4, Expressing Gratitude webinar. So thank you for joining us. We have a very exciting full day today. I've got two amazing guests that I can't wait to have you hear their experience and hear them express their gratitude for who helped them in their careers. But before we begin, I wanted to give a little housekeeping rules, let you know that we have about 100 guests that will be joining us today. Typically, we have a question and answer session at the end. If you are calling in, then you'll have to, I'll unmute you if you raise your hand. And if you raise your hand in the participant panel, I can also unmute you for that question and answer session at the end. So who are Women in Pensions? Well, we are an organization that is promoting professional development of women in the retirement plan industry. We are a network of more than 1,800 women across the country, and that spans from early career, mid-career, and senior level throughout the industry of record keepers, TPAs, DCIOs, broker-dealers, RIAs, ERISA attorneys, advisors, and consultants. So if you're on the call today and you're from one of those categories, welcome. We're so happy that you've taken the time today to invest in yourself and this hour with Women in Pensions. So why Women in Pensions? What makes us different or stand out in our organization? Well, we are an independent women's organization, so we drive our agenda and initiatives, but we use the input and insight from those walks of life in the industry, from our members, and also our sponsors. Our primary goal is a networking, a sharing, and an inspirational community. Truly, we've grown that community from 5 to 20 regional chapters in 2018 alone. So congratulations to all of you who have done that. If you have interest in starting a regional chapter, by all means, reach out to our regional chapter person on the website who will be able to get in touch with you and teach you how to do that. Or if you're not certain if there is a regional chapter close to you, visit that website as well. You can also follow us at conference events. We do 5 wraparound events each year at all the major conferences. So you're sure to find us either at a conference or in your regional chapters. If you can't get to any of those, please stay connected with us on LinkedIn. And that address is right there, Women in Pensions Network. So today's topic, and actually this entire series for 2018, is coming to a close. I'm very, very fond of this series called Fearless You, A Year of Courageous Conversations. There were 4 parts to this series. Today we're broaching our 4th part. The first part was Take It On. The second part is Creating Workplace Culture. The third part, Thrive on Challenge. And then today is Expressing Gratitude. If you missed any one of those parts, you also can find those recorded versions on our website. I don't do this alone, although I have a fondness for creating these series for Women in Pensions Network. I do have a committee. I'd like to give a shout out, since today is all about gratitude, and thank the committee that is helping me do that. Allie Caffrey from InvestNet, Mickey Morley from CUNA Mutual, and Amanda Malone-Klink from T. Rowe Price. So thank you so much for your efforts this entire year. So why did we build the Fearless Youth topic? Well, it has to do with some recent research from the Rockefeller Foundation that proved that only 6% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women. And Women in Pensions, as a networking organization helping women be inspired to continue developing their careers, this caught our interest. So the Rockefeller Foundation commissioned a study of the Korn Ferry Institute called Women CEOs Speak. And they analyzed 57 current and past women CEOs to identify qualities that drove them. The topics that we created in our 4-part series this year identified each one of those common traits, drivers, or competencies that look very similar to male counterparts, but they were key traits that I identified women leaders or these women CEOs. So the key traits that were identified were courage, risk-taking, resilience, taking on a challenge, and managing ambiguity. That all fell under our part 1 of Take It On. The second trait was creating workplace culture. The culture that they create is being inspirational to others and promoting self-development. They had a grasp on their strengths and weaknesses, and they were unafraid to ask for feedback. And so most of them recognized how they came across, and they adapted to different audiences and encouraged their direct reports as well as others that they were mentoring or advocating for to do the same thing. In part 3, we talked about thriving on challenge, and really this was about seeking independence and challenge and not predictability in work structure, a chance to tackle new problems, and they had an attitude of the harder the challenge, the better it is. What's the worst that can happen? So I'm excited today to let you see our part 4, expressing gratitude. And the key traits that we identified through the study are lacking self-absorption, valuing others' contributions, and not just valuing them, but expressing appreciation to those for their contributions. It's very interesting that successful women CEOs scored 15% higher than their male counterparts on expressing gratitude, and then giving credit to people or situations that helped them and supported them along their way. So that's why we're here today. We wanted to introduce you to our 2 speakers that we're interviewing. Today I'm so excited that we have Denise Diana. She's the Senior Vice President of Enterprise Sales and Key Account Management for Envestnet Retirement Solutions. I'm going to ask both of our speakers to give our timeline. So while their bios are posted here in this presentation and will be posted on our website afterwards, I'm not going to read these right now. I'll let them cover that. And then our second speaker is Jyoti Nihil. She's the VP of Strategic Account Management at Envestnet. Give me 1 second. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping here and unmute their speakers and also have them share their videos. I'm clicking ask to start video. So if both of you would start your video. There we are. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can just see the 2 of you. Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for hanging in with me for that introduction. We're so excited to have you today. Truly, I have a lot of appreciation for the sisterhood and the tribe that we share at Women in Pensions Network. And so, Denise, you've been our fearless leader this entire 2018 as our Women in Pensions president. And Jyoti, you have some great experience as well. So let me ask the both of you, we'll start with Denise, to go through your timeline of your career history.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Andrea. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, great. And I am honored to be closing out this year on this series and with the topic gratitude. I can't think of a better topic to end the year with. You know, when I think of gratitude, I try to incorporate that in my everyday life, both professionally and personally. It's a little hard to do today in technology world where you're having a little less human interaction, but it's really important to stop and make sure that you're showing gratitude and you even feel it, because it really is healthy to do that. So my timeline, I'm about to enter my 20th year in this industry. I started in 1999. And I started at a company very similar to how many folks did, kind of in a sales desk environment. And I continued to grow within that singular company in many different roles. And I was enjoying really a great career progression. And as I was going into my 9th year with that company, I really was feeling on top of the world and had great confidence, just knew that I was going to have this great long career, loved the industry. And personally, though, I made the decision to have a baby when I was 40. And it was at a point in time where I had my other children much younger. And I felt that I had finally reached the pinnacle of I can take a break and have a baby, and it shouldn't really interrupt my career. And so for my first 9 years, I worked for a single company. And in 2008, 2 months after I got back from maternity leave, I was handed a severance package. And that was really the first time in my career path where I was almost just shocked. And at that time, when you're delivered severance packages in this industry, it pretty much was a 5-minute meeting. Here's your severance package, give us your BlackBerry laptop, and this is your last day. And it was pre-LinkedIn days, it was pre-networking, women in pensions networking days. And so I pretty much went home, and I've never, ever felt so alone in my career as I did at that moment. Even though I knew I had a network, it's just I literally wasn't quite sure where it was. And so from that point on, I started reaching out to folks that I could find their phone number, and continued to then land a new role. Ann Schleck was probably my key person at that time that I was talking to. She had a lot of tentacles into companies throughout the industry, so she was pretty much my go-to first person to talk to. It was at that time that she also started to think and get others to think about what a women's network could be in this industry. So coincidentally, at my lowest point was when Women in Pensions started, which was in that 2008 and 2009 timeframe. But from there, the last 10 years of my career path, I have worked for 6 different companies. Now, what's interesting about that is some of that was the nature of M&A. It could have been me being laid off again, or it was my personal choice that I needed to make a change to a different role. But the reason I bring up these last 10 years, which is, by the way, coincidentally when the network's been in place, the Women in Pensions Network, is when you're going through 6 different companies professionally, there is a tremendous amount of transition and change that you're going through. And I relied very heavily on my network, and specifically the Women in Pensions Network, to make sure that I could get through those transitions. And they weren't always easy, and some of them had a tremendous amount of risk in those. Some of those changes were failures, quite frankly, and I needed to dig out of every one of them or grow from each one of those experiences. And pretty much throughout all of this change, I have deepened my relationships with folks on Women in Pensions Network, and just generally my network, because there were times when I was very down and I needed folks to help me come back up and believe in me. And so I truly remember what that felt like. So for me, gratitude is largely around the relationships that I've continued and continue to grow, and hopefully will continue to grow in the future. So that's a little bit about what my timelines look like in the last 20 years.
Okay, so I lied. I said we had a few questions, but there might be some off-road questions here, because what an amazing history and past. Mm-hmm. And we've all had maybe a situation where we have encountered something very difficult, or a transition that is happening, whether the company is doing it or we're doing it ourselves for a new role, that Yep. we really have to rely on some people, like you said, to tell us, you can do this.
Yeah.
And so I love hearing you say that. The gratitude.
It's very true. I mean, yeah, in 2008, when, I really was laid off from the company that I thought I was going to continue my career path on, I immediately internalized that it was somehow my fault. And it really took my network to tell me, no, that's not your fault. That's, let's go find you something else, because you are talented and you're going to do great things other places. And so that is something I think is very different between men and women. We have a tendency to internalize that somehow we did something wrong. I mean, literally, the way that I left that company that day, I felt like I committed a crime. And now, here I am 10 years later. I've had a tremendous amount of experience. I have grown absolutely further and farther than I ever could have if I stayed at that same company.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I love that comment about growth. So we're willing to accept change. We can grow into something more than you ever dreamt would be a blessing for you. I guess is how I would cap that. So Jyoti, let's hear from you. Thank you for joining us today. Please tell us a little bit about what you've been doing and where you're at now, and just your lifeline in the industry.
Okay, happy to. Well, first of all, thank you. I'm grateful to be back in the retirement industry. I'm grateful to get this opportunity to introduce myself to the people, I should say, that I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of people that I do know that are on the phone. At least I'm hoping. My story, I guess, is a little bit of an American success story. Let's call it that way. I grew up in India, moved here when I was 16 years old. I come from a family of business owners in the fashion industry. So retirement industry was a little bit different, obviously, from what I grew up with. But I was working at my sister's retail clothing store when I was 16, 17 years old. And the head of HR basically came in shopping and liked my customer service skills and said, come work for the Hartford. So it's really kind of how I started working at the Hartford, and, very, very grateful for the amazing 23-year career that I had there. Spent 7 years on the annuity line of business, and then about 16 years on the retirement side, and then spent almost 2 years at MassMutual once the acquisition of the retirement business happened. So that was pretty much the 25-year career. Was the 23 years at the Hartford was something that I'm definitely very grateful for, because it was very much of an entrepreneur spirit that the company had, and allowed me to really grow within the company. So lots of different roles, lots of fun. I left in 2014, I think it was, and took a year off just to travel and figure out, what I wanted to do next with my life. I personally went through lots of personal changes. Got divorced, got remarried, moved to Boston from Connecticut, and through it all, just really kind of realized there's not a lot of help that's out there for women that are going through some major life transitions. So I'll talk about that a little bit later, but I started my own life and financial planning business in 2017. And all along, Denise kept saying, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? She's definitely been my cheerleader and my advocate all along. So I'm definitely very grateful for you, Denise. And so when she called earlier this year and said, I think I have the perfect opportunity for you, I jumped on it, and very grateful to be at Envestnet as a VP of Strategic Accounts.
Great, thank you so much. What a great history, a long-term involvement with one company, and then several transitions within that company, but also afterwards. So lots of personal transitions as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about what sustained you during the personal transition?
Lots of travel. Taking time off and really just kind of thinking about, what I wanted to do. The network definitely helped. There were a few people that, I definitely trusted throughout, that I had built relationships with. I kept in touch with them, definitely kept in touch with Denise. I think personally, just realizing I defined myself, I think, through work a lot in the 25-year career, and just getting a chance to really kind of get to know myself more so than what I was outside of, work, I think was eye-opening for me. So I actually appreciated that.
Excellent. I love hearing that you said that the network was really important. After so many years, you do build up those contacts. And that's my next, leading into my next question for both of you. And we'll start with Denise about your network with Women in Pensions. Tell us how you got involved, and also then just some of the people that you've advocated for, who have advocated for you within the Women in Pensions network.
Sure. So my first involvement was way back when Anne really called me and a few others to start this network. And I can remember that we were going through a process to actually nominate a board, and we needed a form or a nomination process to vote in a board for this network we wanted to build. And that's pretty much what I did. That was my role, to pull together a nomination process. Now, I wasn't on the board the first year. I was going through different changes, and I think I had just started at one of these companies, so I didn't have the time to dedicate to it. So for the most part, in the beginning, up until about 5 years ago, I was a participant, you know, at the events and industry events, and I would always connect with the folks who were ever at these industry events. But then about 5 years ago, Amy Glynn called me and said there was an opening on the board and asked if I was interested. And, you know, it's interesting when people call you for volunteer organizations, because as women, it's sometimes hard to figure out how you're going to find the space for that. And, you know, we have a tendency to put others first. And so in some ways, this would be putting myself first, because I was going to have to allocate some time to it. And because you take on too much. So I gingerly kind of went into this thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to see how much time demand it's going to be. And I think at the time, I still might have been in transition between two companies. So it was perfect to give it the test drive. And I did. And what I gained from it was so much more than that. First of all, I realized that I had a lot of value to give to the organization. We were still very much doing a lot of the work off the side of our desks, and we wanted to make sure that some of it was formal. The board at that time were very top women. I think every time we've had a board, we've had top women. The difference, I think, here was we were all starting to gain that next level of leadership. And so that was starting to impact what our goals and objectives were with the network. And so you start to raise the bar. I mean, it's just, there's no other way to say it. And as we started to raise the bar, we all started to think about different ways that we could continue to grow this network and how we could really, you know, grow it, you know, in a way where we have all of the women in this industry participating. So we spent a lot of our time there. I was a secretary on the board for 2 years. And then after that, was nominated into the vice president position. And then lastly, this is my last year as a president and serving as the president of the board. And I can tell you what I've told many, probably if you've heard me out in the marketplace, that this is the first all-women team that I've ever actually led in my entire career. I've also took an inventory this morning about every boss that I ever had. I had 16 bosses in the course of my 28 career. And in that course of the career, interesting enough, I had 8 women and 8 men. It was split down the middle, which is interesting for me. I had never really taken that inventory, but for the most part, this last year has been so incredibly rewarding for me. The last 5 years really being on the board and really being hands-on and driving where we are right now with women in pensions and where we're going to be in the future has been an absolute thrill for me. But what I can tell you is this last year, leading a group of 10 women and organizing around one single goal, which was to grow membership, was by far the most rewarding thing that I have done in the last 10 years. We grew it from somewhere around 200 paid members. We started off in January, and now we have over 800. We did many things this year to contribute to that result. Every single person on this board of 11 women, 10 to 11 women, absolutely just excelled at what they did this year, and we drove results, and we did it quickly, which is so amazing. I always tell the story how in January of last year, we had a meeting, we put together 34 items, and by April, we had 24 of them done. I've never been on a corporate team in my history of 28 years where we've ever done more than 10 that were on the list. So the power of women and the ability for us to execute was shown to me firsthand this year. And as I continue to have different roles in this industry, I'm always going to look to make sure that I have key women, if not all women, on my teams.
Wonderful comments. Thank you so much for sharing sort of the back end or behind the scenes with women in pensions and the way that the strategy for growth was executed. It was an amazing time. I have really, truly enjoyed my time on the board as well. Let me springboard into an unexpected question for you then, Denise, for other women that are on our call today. How do women get involved? What would you recommend?
Well, the great news is, I mean, there's only 11 board seats, right? So it's in any given year, and some of those terms are 2 years. And so it's not as easy to get on a board seat, but really the preemptive requirement there would be to be involved in any sort of a region or on a committee that one of the board member runs. And once you get to know the organization, then you can navigate to where there's something of interest for you. And, you know, there was a point in time in this network, probably going back 6-7 years, where we were struggling to get people to actually be on the board. Well, now that has dramatically changed, and now we have more candidates than we have spots to really fill the board seats with. So if that is something that you really want to become active in, I would encourage regional chapters, get on committees, and be very engaged with it and learn a lot about the organization. We also, as a board, are starting to expand our face-to-face meetings and leadership meetings to include the regional chapters and more committee members. So it becomes much more larger of a leadership organization when we expand meetings like that.
Good, excellent. And I know for myself, that's how I got involved, just attending a conference, being introduced to women in pensions by Barb Cantello at Nationwide when I spent several years there, and being asked to volunteer for a committee. So I would encourage anybody that's on our webinar today, if you want to be involved, take a look at the different committees that are available. It doesn't matter which region you're in, or if you want to do something regionally with women face-to-face, please get involved in the regional chapter. They're hosting between 1 to 3 events every year for each chapter. Some of them are very fun, some of them are just professional development. So there's a range of ways to get involved, and the basis of this is just making the connection that counts. When you meet somebody, it's the LinkedIn philosophy. So when you meet somebody, you're tapping into their network, their organization. And really, I've heard so many people say, you know, things don't happen, if you're looking to expand your career, they don't happen in the interview. They happen in all the connections that you're making ahead of time. So I would encourage each woman that's on our call to be involved in some capacity, if not just by attending our events or listening to some of the webinars that we've recorded. Please get involved. There's always a spot for you. And then women that you're going to meet are very amazing and will help your career. Joe T, let me ask you the same question then. Tell us about your involvement with women in pensions and anybody that you've advocated for along the way, and obviously Denise and how she advocated for you.
Sure. So I've, as I said earlier, I've been lucky enough to know Denise from my career at the Hartford, and we've definitely stayed in touch even while, I wasn't in the industry. And then when I considered coming back into the industry, she suggested immediately that, I join Women in Pensions. And I have to say that was probably one of the best things that I did, because I was weirdly a little bit nervous to come back into the industry. I was like, I don't know that I want to do that. I thought I was done after 25 years. And like I said earlier, Denise has always been my cheerleader and always been pushing, reminding me of what I can do and, what I can accomplish all the time. So, I did Women in Pensions, obviously, and went to one of the events in Boston. And I have to say, it wasn't, just even jumping on the website, wasn't surprised to see a lot of the women that I had known in the industry being part of that network. So that was nice to see, familiar faces, obviously. And when I went to the event, everyone was very, very welcoming. So it just kind of eased me into, just the idea of coming back into the industry. This was even before I actually started at InvestNet. So, definitely Denise has been an advocate. You're probably going to hear that over and over that I will say that today. And I hope that, or I'd like to say that in my career, I've helped other women out in similar way, but nothing as official as, being part of Women in Pensions Network. I hope to do that a whole lot more now, being part of that network.
Okay, excellent, great, thank you. And Denise, we've heard Jody say this a couple of times. Let's hear it from your perspective. This is our next question. What work have you done with women going through career or life transitions? You can take both or one. And what was it like for you? When you thought of Joe T and she mentioned that you reached out to her to say, hey, come back to the industry. Talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So first I would say, you know, I think it was last year, Andrea, there was a webinar series that we did, and one of the speakers talked about the queen bee syndrome. And, I think for largely a part of my career, the generation of women that are in my, that are, the generation of women that are like me, we experienced some women leaders that may have had that queen bee syndrome. And I had honestly never heard of that until about 2 years ago. And when we did that webinar, it really gave me pause, because I could immediately pop in my mind who those women were that I had come across that I felt did have that queen bee syndrome. And then it made me kind of look internally and said, wow, Denise, have you ever really done that? I mean, you have to be honest with yourself. Did you ever shut out someone or somebody because you were sort of self-insulating yourself in your career growth? And I don't think I do. I think generally my nature was always to pull people into my world, not keep people out. And so that's largely how I've always interacted with women or anybody in our network, in my network that I've worked with, or that I've gotten to know. And I truly know the power of network. I read a book shortly after I left in 2008, or my first sort of walk out the door exit strategy, called The Power of Who. And it really talks about how everybody really knows the 100 people that they need to know in this, in their personal network or just in their network to be successful in life. But that there are different levels of that network. So you might only have 5 or 10 people in your immediate power of who, and those 5 or 10 people would do anything for you. Pretty much, it's almost like family. And then you go further out in the network, and then you
I think
just acquaintances. And so they define, can you see me?
yes.
They define this entire, 100. But what it made me realize is that sometimes the person that you're talking to in networking is not the person that's going to give you the job. They're just supporting you in some way to think differently. They could be connecting you with someone that will then connect you with someone else. And so this is not a linear process. It's a very matrix kind of process as a network. So whenever I'm talking with someone that's in transition, or a woman that's looking to grow in a different way, I'm thinking about who I can connect them with to get to the next step. Not necessarily to the end, but how can I help them get to the next step, or help them pursue the next step in this process, whatever it may be. And I think that's important, because I'm not going to have the solution for everyone. I'm not going to have the job opportunity for everyone, but I may have just given some insight, told them a little bit about my transition, which I think always eases people's mind, because sometimes when you're going through transitions, you feel like you're the only person that ever went through something like that. And I just continue to support and promote and tell them, you're awesome. You're going to do great. 2 examples of that. I recently, just my personal network and professional network sometimes crosses paths. And I was at a Halloween party and came across a female that is a little bit younger than me that just had her first baby. And she didn't necessarily love the company she was with before she went on maternity leave. She's kind of dreading going back. And I said to her, well, let's think about who we can connect you with. You're not stuck there. Let's, go back, do what you need to do, but let's start navigating you to other connections. She was a person that worked at one company for a very long time. So it's uncomfortable for her to talk to other folks outside of her immediate network in that company. So it's sort of giving a little push to say, you don't have to be unhappy, and you're awesome, and you'll do fine other places. We just need other people to know that. And then the other example of that is the other night came across another female, again, worked for the same company for a long period of time. Her son came down with leukemia 18 months ago. She's been going back to work part-time. She needs the benefits, and the company's been great to her. And, but she's pretty much down the dumps. Like, her career basically had to take a hold because of this event. And this is not something that, any mother wouldn't make that choice on. So but you could tell that she's not where she was. You could tell that has taken her back. And I simply said to her, you know what, get through what you need to get through. And when you come out of this thing, you're going to be better and stronger. And you're going to be so much more dynamic than you were before, because you've had this life experience. So the world will be wide open to you when you're ready again, but you don't have to be ready right now, and that's okay. And just giving women sort of that little pump up to say, I've been down before, I've come back, you're down now, you'll come back. It makes the biggest difference.
I love those comments. One of the things that I failed to mention in the beginning is this is a members only webinar. So I'm going to take time after we're done with all of the questions to announce all of the attendees here. So you can see the audience of women and thank them for attending. But I also want to let you know that when you are a member, you can see the membership. So for connections across TPAs, DCAOs, broker-dealer firms, you'll see the list of all the members. So if there's anybody that you're interested in, if there is a company or a corporation or somebody else that you in your local area, hey, I didn't know you were a Women in Pensions member. That's a great way to connect and get connected. So Jody, let me ask you the same question about working with women going through career and life transitions. How have you worked with women going through career and life transitions?
Sure. So my answer is a little bit different in that after I left the retirement industry, as I mentioned earlier, I personally went through some, major life transitions. I got divorced, I got remarried, family grew, moved to Boston, and just, while I was going through all of that, I just realized how little financial support and how little information is out there for women. So, especially when you're going through a major life transition like divorce. To me, obviously whenever anyone goes through a divorce, usually there's one person, and I'm sure everyone will agree with me, between the two parties that does the finances, that's responsible for the finances. And the other person truly just has taken on a different role and, taken on a different responsibility in the house, whether that's for kids or whether that's, what have you. And they don't know what they don't know. And that's a scary thing. All of a sudden, while you're taking care of the kids and while you're taking care of, maybe even having a job, maybe even having a house, all that stuff that most women just do and, don't even think twice about, you don't necessarily pay attention to your finances. So, when I decided to get certified as a divorce mediator, which was definitely a new thing for me because obviously that was never in the realm of something that I had even considered being, from the retirement industry. But it's kind of like you don't know how much you know until you start helping other people, and really just kind of came up with, some conversations that I had with friends who needed help after I had gone through a divorce. So I decided to become a life and financial planner, got certified in divorce mediation, and wanted to build a network. So that's one of the reasons I certified in that, and learn that industry and really kind of be able to help people within that industry. And business is called Life Events Organizing, so it's really all about helping people, women that are going through major life transitions, especially like divorce. And it just brings me personally a lot of joy to be able to empower women, to be able to help, just teach them what they don't know and make them feel stronger and help them realize there's life on the other side of it. So I know that there's a lot of people that have obviously gone through it. I didn't realize it. I didn't realize how tough it was until I went through it. And, it's nice to be able to help other people in that way.
Good, thank you so much. So we're down to our final question, and we still have a little bit of time. So hopefully everybody is very excited and rallied, and we'll have some questions after you answer this final question, and I get to tell all the names of the attendees and thank them personally for joining and being members of Women in Pensions. But let me ask you, for 2018, who or what organization were you most grateful for?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, this one's easy for me, as I've been saying, all along. It's most definitely Denise, and it's most definitely InvestNet. Um, First of all, I mean, throughout my time out of the industry, as I said, Denise stayed in touch with me. She's always been my advocate. She's always been my cheerleader, as I said earlier. But more importantly, keeping me in the loop of what's going on in the industry, motivating me, just reminding me what I'm capable of. As I said, I was pretty adamant, Andrea, after having had a 25-year career and starting my own business, I was pretty adamant about not coming back to the industry unless it was an absolutely perfect opportunity. And of course, owning your own business, you have your panic buttons several times. When you're like, no, 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 I have to go back to work. I have to go back to work. And just I was trying to be very selective as much as I could about where I was going to go and who I was going to work for. So Denise called earlier this year and said, I think I have the right opportunity for you. Do you want to come back? And I said, yeah, I think I'm ready. So this one's, like I said, definitely very easy for me. It came at a perfect time personally. Much more settled after going through all of my life changes and ready to come back in the industry. And it's a being in this role is definitely a perfect fit for me, professionally and personally. It's just a perfect work-life balance. So definitely very grateful to Denise. Definitely very grateful to have the opportunity to be back in the industry and be at InvestNet, and just very nice.
That's awesome. I love those comments. It's just the nature of our industry alone. We have the opportunity to impact so many lives down to the participant level by the choices that we're making, either on a corporate level or plan sponsor trustee level. So it's been amazing to me in my role. I'm in the advisory side, to be able to see the impact that we're able to have through not only our investment management but our advisory services to participants. We work primarily with a lot of dental practice management firms. So I'd like to take this opportunity, although they're not on the call, but to thank my clients. They're amazing, and all the participants and the employees of their companies. It's truly a delight to be able to impact women who may be fearful of investing and be able to watch them kind of grow and bloom and understand that investments are not confusing, and that the 401k or the defined contribution plan that their employer offers is really a benefit for them. That might be the difference between life decisions that they may be making depending on their balance in that. So not just retirement readiness, but all along the way. So I'd like to take this opportunity just to thank all the people that I've had the opportunity to work with. And Denise, I'll ask you the same question then. For 2018, of course, we just talked about your amazing lengthy career, but for 2018, who or what organization are you most thankful for?
Well, I guess both. I am really, truly enjoying the organization that I work for right now, InvestNet. Although it is probably the fastest paced job that I've ever had, and the most challenging in some ways. I've really been able to grow quite a bit in this career path. But as far as a highlight of my year, it truly was Women in Pensions and leading the Women in Pensions board. I know all of the board members and I got to know them, but to sit in the president's seat and look at the 11 people that are kind of saying, okay, what are we going to do this year? And one of the primary things that I was frustrated with is our membership was toggling around this 250. We'd lose members, we'd gain members, and it was going nowhere. And every year for the last 5 years, we had set our goal at 500, and every year we failed. So I said, we're done with that, and we're going to set our goal at 1,000. And everything that we do on this list has to be driving membership. So that's what our priority is going to be. So for me, it was just simply a thrill for folks to get on board and get on that bus and have people believe in that and align and then work towards that goal. And we made so much headway, and now we're sitting at over 800 members. So we didn't reach the 1,000 goal, although I do think in the next quarter we will get there. But for the most part, to me, having 11 people believe in what I was leading was a highlight for me. And I am so thankful and grateful for that.
Okay, great, thanks. I also wanted to give a shout out to my family. I have an amazing family, and they're so supportive of me as I try to be to them. And in my role now in this mentoring committee, it's been fun to kind of use some of the same things that I've learned throughout the series that we've created. You mentioned the Queen Bee. I've used that with my daughter and some employers that she's been with, and my son even, and my husband. So I think this organization does a tremendous job of putting together content and valuable learning tools for all of our members. I think that the organization that I'm a part of right now, Hamilton Capital, as an advisory firm, financial wealth planning, investment management, the advisors that I work with are extremely knowledgeable and phenomenal, and they trust me with their defined contribution clients. So I appreciate that very, very much. I wanted to give shout out to who's on the call. So the way that your participant name is listed in the attendee list is alphabetical. So if your name begins with A, you're lucky. You get to hear your name called first. Alana Frank, Andrea Nita, Anna Carlucci, Cheryl Castillo, Cheryl Gammon, Christina Stoffer, Christine Carlson, Christy Kirtland, Cindy Volker, Courtney Lessick, Denise Penn, Jerry Harrow, Janelle Anderson, Jennifer Conroy, Jennifer Hayes, Jerry Olson, we thank all of you, Jillian White, Judy Feiner, Julie Casey, Kara Kidney, Karen Dutzen, Katie Nettle, Katie Albers, Kelly Thompson, Kim Perry, Kristen Osorio, Kylie Hansen, Lisa Allen, Lisa Morris, Marcia Dennis, Michelle LeCate, Pam Brooks, Peg Knox, Rachel Crowley, Sarah Millinghausen, Shannon Whelan Kelly, Sheila Reed, Shelley Sievers, Shruti Mailavarupu, so sorry about that, Stacia Apostolos, Stephanie Harper, Susan Frank, Susan Kabara, Susan Morris, Tanya Hurt, and Tricia Neer. Now we have many others, but they've dialed in, and so their names don't populate. So I just want to give a huge shout out. This is a passion that Denise has had, is to grow our members. And you, the members, are not just faceless people to us. You are very, very important to us. We appreciate you. We appreciate what you're doing. We hope you're finding value in this. And we also want you to be our advocates. So please, from the firms that you're with, link in other women. Please join your regional chapters and invite members to join you. It is sort of a constant turnover. And also just realize that you can be a connector as well. You don't have to be in any sort of official role or any kind of a leadership role, even just doing whatever work you're doing. You, nose to the ground, are women that can help other women. So keep your eyes and ears open for other women that are looking for an opportunity. And one thing that being part of this organization has trained me to do is to ask women, what are you looking for? And like Denise said earlier, I may not have that. I may not know even somebody that knows somebody that has that, but it will be an exercise for that woman to be able to vocalize and express what her needs are, keying her in to be able to look for it and ask for it more. Sometimes we just need to give our counterparts a voice, whether it's we're looking for a product or a new role or just a solution to one individual personal solution or a situation. Just ask women what they're looking for. And I guarantee you, as you go down your line or the week, you'll say, hey, so-and-so needed this. Oh my gosh, there it is. It's really kind of fun to see these things kind of crop up. And you're like, oh, I just ran into somebody that was talking about this. So there gets to be a lot of synergy when you get to have the fun part of this networking organization. And I just wanted to go back to one comment that you said about, Denise, about the involvement with women in pensions, since I'm talking about our members and how they can get involved. It is a volunteer work. But I will tell you that this has been the most fun, fulfilling, and successful experience that I've had in quite some time. I love this opportunity that I've been given to be able to be part of the Columbus chapter. the mentoring committee and the board. So to me, it didn't feel like work. It felt like something I couldn't wait to get into and to do. It was very, very fun. So I would just encourage all women on our call today to pay attention to what feels fun to you. What sparks your interest, and where are you feeling you're leaning and because that's where you're probably really skilled and talented, and that's where women in pensions can use you the most. So at this time, I'm going to open it up and just wanted to thank you, Joe T. and Denise. Turn it over to our audience. If you have a question or a comment you'd like to make, you're able to raise your hand at this time. So give it a minute and we'll see if we have any comments. Sometimes it takes a second for people to get back onto their computers. I don't see any just yet. Let me unmute everybody. Just give me one quick second. Okay, all participants are unmuted at this time, so if you have a question, feel free to chime in. Oh, come on, somebody, don't be shy. Okay, well, it looks like we're not going to get anybody that's going to be brave enough to speak out. And maybe it is a technical difficulty. I know sometimes Zoom technology takes a moment to catch up. But Denise and Joe T, if you have any closing comments, feel free to join in.
I do. Probably, I don't know that it's necessarily under the topic of gratitude, but I put down some thoughts about, you know, what I want folks to focus on, or just some inspirational thoughts. Number one, your network can never be big enough. Okay, so make sure that you're tapping into every component of any networking opportunities you have. I'm sure you've heard that for many, many years, but it's very true. You never know who's going to know who. You and only you can be in the driver's seat for your career. So if you're not happy where you are, it's your job to change it. You reach out, try and navigate that yourself. No one's going to come to you and say, you know what, I noticed you're unhappy, so let me help you make a change. That doesn't happen. So you really have to be the one in your driver's seat. You have to take bets on yourself. And this is very hard for women, much easier for men to do. So, you know, if you're considering making a move or you're considering doing something different, just make sure you're taking the bet on yourself. 9 times out of 10, that's going to work out for you because you know what you're capable of. And then believe in others. And this is kind of, to me, where the gratitude part is that you have to believe in others. And when you're talking to someone, you got to look for and listen for what they think they're good at, how maybe you can help, and then help believe in them. You know, really just support them and say, you're going to get there. And it may not be tomorrow, but you're going to get there. So I think those are very important things to keep in mind. And I would say the last one, I would say, and I've lived, change is good. You grow with change. So don't ever be afraid of change.
Beautiful. I love those comments. Joe T, let me hear some wrap up comments for you.
I was going to say a lot of what Denise just said. You know, I think that the biggest thing for me is obviously change is good. You know, being at the same company for 23 years, when after the acquisition happened, after all of the changes happened, it was very nerve-wracking. Your network is very, very important. I would say even within my 23 years at the Hartford, I only got different positions because of my network. Don't hesitate to reach out. You know, truly, the only reason I even moved from the annuity side to the retirement side was because I reached out to, you know, a woman that I was very impressed with that spoke at a conference that was in an executive role, and developed a relationship. And the next thing you know, I was in a different, you know, position. Not to say that you build a network just to get a job, but your network is extremely important, and you don't realize the value of it until you do. I guess I'll say it that way. So change is good. Change is very good. Don't be afraid, even though sometimes it's very, very nerve-wracking. Reach out to people, and you'll have more support than you think you do. So thank you for the opportunity, Andrea, and thank you, Denise, for everything you're continuing to do for everyone within the group, and just personally and professionally. Thanks, Andrea.
You're welcome. And I just want to thank you both as our main speakers today. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so authentic and vulnerable. I know that there are so many things that have been said through this webinar that I will take to heart. And I know that there's a woman on the line that probably will have the same experience to say, that is just what I needed to hear today. And they've written this down, and they're going to put it on a sticky note, put it in their planner or on their computer screen. And that's going to be what makes them be inspired to go take that next step. So thank you so much for all your words of wisdom. This is going to be a recording, so it will be available on our website. At that point, it will be open to more than just members, so please feel free to do that. These are also actually recorded on YouTube, so if there's some way or anyone you want to share with outside of your network or your organization, you can look those up there as well. So again, I just want to thank Women in Pensions for my opportunity to have been on the board. It was an amazing experience, and I'm really looking forward to developing the chapter here in Columbus. So shout out to both of you, and shout out to Women in Pensions. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
Take care. Happy holidays.